Hi, Bettina. How are you?
Very good.
Good. So I'm so
Thanks.
excited to have you on this episode of the grit, guts, and courage. And so let's just jump right into it. In life, everybody has some sort of situation that they've had to get through. And the situation happens, and then we think, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? So that's why I love the title, The Grit, Guts, and Courage, because eventually we do move through this situation and we come out at the other end of it. And sometimes we think that it's a tragedy, or sometimes we see it as a gift. And so, Bettina, I know you've got this incredible story. And so I'm really excited about having you on our show today. So please tell me more about you.
Good question. Thank you. Thank you for the welcome. I'm excited to be here and share my story, my journey. And yeah, I'm. what-
It's all
So tell
good.
me about. Pardon me?
It's all good. Start with, what do you do for a living? What do you do for people?
Oh, yeah, okay. I was going like, okay. So what do I do for people? I'm going to say a transformational guide. I really believe in empowering people to step into their potential, and that's through many different modalities that I work with, such as breath work, Reiki, energy, drumming, sound meditations, a little bit of everything. So just the love seeing the transformation that happens for people as they start to pull back the layers and dive beneath the stories and those beliefs and see that there's something else within, I'm going to say, a light within the darkness, which almost fits into, really what your book is about. And I'm just excited to see the growth that happens. That happened in my own journey, and also sharing what I learned with others, so they can find their way through the darkness as well.
So I know that you have a story that you want to share with people about grit, guts, and courage. So why don't you share that story with us?
Mm, thank you. Well, the story that I chose to share is a story with my mom, and it is the journey that's been for the last, I'm going to say, 11 years, 12. We're into our 12th year, and her sidekick dementia, and I call it her sidekick. So this has been, I'm going to say, just an incredible journey of I'm going to say, my heart and soul breaking open, watching a family member go through this. And I hope I'm not going to cry. It
That's
is,
okay. It's all about being vulnerable. It's all good.
yeah, it's, yeah, just I feel that it's one of the cruelest diseases that there really is, because there's really not anything that can be done. You just watch your family member, such as my mom, just disappearing slowly, ever so slowly, particularly over these last 11 years. And when she was first diagnosed, it was, she had a difficult time because she didn't want to notice. It was just like, well, no, nobody calls me, nobody does this, nobody. And I'm going like, Mom, I talk to you every single night. And she would say, well, nobody calls me, and etc. And I have my family as my witnesses to see that I'm making this phone call every night just to check in. And finally, after, I'm going to say, 6 months, I went over to her home and I just said, Mom, maybe there's something that's wrong. Maybe it's the senior moments, as she was saying, with that. But and she says, no, I write everything down, and you're making this more than what it needs to be. And I just burst out crying, and I just said, Mom, it's like this is where it is. Would you, agree to see a doctor? And so that was, we started the journey with going to have her checked out, and they did all sorts of tests to see whether it was vascular or this type of dementia or whatever. And so she was officially diagnosed in November of 2011. And so that began the journey. She was in her own home and continued there. She had a fall. I mean, she cracked 8 ribs. Um, broke her shoulder blade after a fall down the stairs. There was just lots of little different incidents that were happening. And the big part came 5 years later when the decision was to move her from her home. And it was part of her decision. She wanted to be closer to myself because she had tripped on a few things and she was now recognizing it. And I should have maybe someone closer. And so we started to look at some places that she could go and live in and etc. And we were signing the paperwork or ready to sign the paperwork. And she just went, whoa, I want to stay in my home one more year or one more Christmas. So we canceled everything and she had one more Christmas at home. And I was driving down to her place. She lives about half an hour away. I was driving to her house once a week, and I would go get the groceries and pick them up and bring them to her house. Before that, I was actually picking her up and going to the grocery store, and that would turn out to be a 2 to 3, 4 hour ordeal, as she would forget where and what. So I learned from that, and then decided I would just decide what she would need and go from there. So after doing that for a while, we moved her into the facility the following 6 months, and from there, then it was selling her home. I had so many friends that came and they helped me to move the items. We did a garage sale and moved her. And I remember after 3 months of packing her home and everything, and then getting to that point of going, when the house was empty, I was like, oh my, am I doing the right thing? Am I making this, the choice for my mom to move and leave her home and everywhere which she was comfortable? And I still question that to this day. Did I make the right decision for my mom to move out of her home? Which I know it was, because she was in a place that she could be helped and assisted. And I did attempt to talk to her and say, Mom, what if you had someone come into your home and live with you? And she had a full basement, and she just went, no, nobody's coming in my home. Nobody's going to live with me. And so that was a decision to move. So she lived there in what was called independent living, because we couldn't get a proper diagnose in regards to her needing more assistance. And then in October of 2020, she had a fall and broke her hip. And she was taken to the hospital. And after, I didn't even know if she was going to make it out of the hospital. And the doctor came and said, is this kind of your mom's normal, where she's at? And I said, yes, because they had asked her where she was, and she was everywhere else but where she was. So the doctor said, okay, well, we're going to sign everything over to you, and you have full, power of attorney and all that over your mom. And so then more decisions happened, because now I had to go in and give notice to her place, because they said she's not going to be able to go back into her where she was living. And here's option A, here's option B, and be prepared for whatever it's going to be. So selling again, now more items, living. She was in the hospital for 2.5 months, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of all of this sort of stuff that was happening. They couldn't get certain things regulated. And then finally they said that they needed to move her. And so we put her name onto a waiting list for the facility. And it was just this, constant waiting. But watching my mom slowly disappear, it was like after she had that fall, it was like we lost 20 years. It was just like there was no memory of where she lived at that particular time, where she had lived prior. It was almost like she went back to her younger years. So there was this big gap. And it was, I'm going to say my heart was breaking open to watch this place where we couldn't have the same conversations that we could before. And it took incredible, I'm going to say, strength to watch this and to watch her where she had this confusion of not knowing where she was. If we took her out of in the hallway, out into her, for a little ride or whatever, she would get concerned because she wouldn't know where she was at. And and she didn't know where she was going to be staying. And this was a constant thing. No, here you go. Here's your room, and it would just be like, oh, okay, you got this all figured out. And then the next day, the same thing. And I was just like, my heart just felt like it was breaking open over and over and over, and making decisions like as her, I'm going to say her advocate, having to make those decisions was wow. Yeah, I'm going to say this was one of the hardest journeys of my life. It's been great in teaching lots of things. I'm going to say surrender being one of those, and a place of trust in this unknown. But just watching her world get so small, and even now, her mobility and the different things is starting to decline even more. Her memory's even declining a little bit more. So I just, whew, yeah, it's been a lot. It's been an
So
incredible lot.
how did you get through it? If you had somebody sitting in front of you that was going through the same thing, what are like three things you would tell them? Like how can they get through it?
Excellent question. I'm going to say surrender. Surrender is a huge piece of it. Meeting her where she's at, not wanting it to be something different or correcting or so on and so forth. Finding some humor is another piece. I remember when she was in the hospital and I was leaving the one night and I said, "Good night, Mama Bear." And she just like looks at me and she says, "I'm not a bear." I went, "That's true. Okay, good night, Mom." And off I left. And so there's many times of finding the humor in those small moments and realizing, I'm going to say, returning back to that surrender, is that it's not going to be anything different than what it is. And compassion is another piece, is that compassion for your own self. And I'm going to relate that into the trust, because there's so many times that I question whether I was making that right decision. And you have to trust that you're making the right decision. I know that each time I cried and I wondered if I was, the end result showed that it was the right decisions to move her from her home into an independent living, from the hospital into a care facility, etc. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. I have another question. Sometimes we see a situation as being a tragedy, like when I lost my baby, it was a tragedy, but the gift in it was that we then ended up having twin boys, and we wouldn't have had the twins if we would have had her, because we would have stopped at the two girls. So the gift in it is, her passing was a gift. So what gift do you see in your story?
Wow. That's yeah. That is such a great thing, is because how can we find those blessings, or how can we find the gifts? And I remember when she fell, didn't even know that whether she was going to make it out of the hospital or not. It was there. I mean, three people had to assist her out of the hospital bed just to get her to the bathroom, so to speak. And I remember. I remember when I came home for the next few nights, and I remember as I was just laying in bed and asking for, guidance. Help me to see the blessings in this. Help me to see the blessings in this. And now I can see the blessings. I'm going to be honest, at that time, I definitely didn't see the blessings in regards to that. Now I see the blessings because I learned about my mom's family history. We didn't know the family history prior to 2020. It was forbidden to be talked about by my opa because they were part of the over 3 million people that were expelled from their country in the Second World War. So in essence, his country didn't exist. So it wasn't allowed to talk. Their home didn't exist anymore. And so that was really a blessing that I was able to find out more of this history and also what my mom had experienced, how old she was. I got the connection. Actually, also another blessing is that I connected with my two aunts that were able to share other stories, and I found a lot more of the family history and what my Oma had endured and all of the other things. I didn't even know that my Opa had been a prisoner of war, as those things were never discussed. And so it's just like, wow, those are the blessings. And then just to know that I'm here to help and support my mom in the best ability that's possible, and not to beat myself up because it's not meant to look perfect.
Exactly. So one of the second last question I'm going to ask you is, what one piece of advice would you give somebody?
Hmm. Number one, I'm going to say breathe. I'm going to say remember to breathe, because many times when we're going through all of that, we will hold our breath in regards to like, oh my God, how is this going to all work, and etc. And I'm going to say take that time for you, take that time to uh, give yourself a treat, give yourself to have that rest, give yourself the time out. And because sometimes we can push and we go, 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 go. And the person that gets neglected the most is your own self. And can you give from that place when your cup is empty? So number one is look after you, of however that's going to be, whether it's that walk on nature, um, whatever it's going to be. But most of all, remember to breathe.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, so the last question is, how can people get in touch with you? Because, I know you're doing some incredible work, Bettina, and I love the work you do, and you've just got this beautiful spirit about you. So how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, excellent. People can get in touch with me in regards to bettinamaria.ca. I've also, as of last year in September of 2022, opened up a new studio, which is a wellness center where breath work and drumming and sound meditations and get-togethers and community can come. So that's at essencestudio.ca. And that's a beautiful place where we can come in and yeah, collaborate. So thank you.
And don't you have a new book coming out eventually? And I know this because you and I have been working together on your book. So feel free to talk about your book.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, the book that is in the works is called The Giant Onion, and Peeling Back the Layers for Inner Transformation. And a lot of it is the sharing of my own transformation, my own journey. And I even share this with my students, is sometimes like I've been held back a few times on this journey. And if you feel like you're there, keep going. And part of that is it's looking underneath those layers. And we put up those, we create the stories and beliefs and perceptions about ourselves and about others and about the world. And then all of a sudden we start to peel back these things. We see that there's another part of ourself that we didn't even know that was there. So these are many of the processes and the tools that can help people, I'm going to say, discover that within their own self and feel empowered to be who you are, to really step into that wisdom, that beauty, that what's sitting there, because we don't see it, and it's going inwards to find it. Your answers are not outside. I've done a lot of workshops, read a lot of books, and etc. And it was only when I decided to do that inner journey and realize that my answers were inside. But I'm going to also say it was the most scariest place to be, because I didn't know who I was.
That's fantastic. I love it. Thank you so much, Bettina. I can't
Thank you,
wait for
Kelly.
your book to come out because I love, love, love the cover with a big giant purple onion on it. So I absolutely love it.
Oh,
So
excellent. Well, thank you for always being a great support and helping with building the cover and all of the other things and working together and just, yeah, for your guidance and your wisdom. I know there's times where I throw my hands up and you're there to go like, just keep going, just do that thing. You'll get there.
yeah, you'll get there. I know I'm confident. 2023, we're gonna make you that best-selling author.
Well,
So
thank you. Thank
good.
you. I look forward to that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Bettina. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. And, I enjoyed your story of grit, guts, and courage and, dealing with your mom and dementia. And, we're going through that with my family. So it's always
Mm,
nice to know that there's other people who've been through it. So thank you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you for this time and for the questions and this opportunity to be able to share the story because we don't always get an opportunity to talk about it.
That's right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.